What's going on, guys? This is Titan, aka T. If you're following me on social media, here to give you guys a video on GameStop earnings, which I believe is Thursday after hours. So if you're interested in this kind of content, make sure you leave a like and subscribe. Follow me on my social media platforms, which will be in the description below. We will be constantly going over different earnings reports. And if you are interested in a particular stock that's coming up, earnings report, or just stocks in general, feel free to comment below. All right. Without further ado, let's get right to it. So first, we're going to get into the psychology on how earnings typically works out. Now, this isn't set in stone or anything like that, but this is more so of the normal pattern I always see with earnings report. So a lot of you tend to be confused. Well, a lot of investors tend to be confused on how earnings work. And let's say a stock has great earnings, right? And then it plummets. New investors tend to be very confused as to why a stock will have great earnings but end up plummeting. I won't even say great earnings, more so like, good earnings, decent earnings or whatever. And then it just ends up plummeting. So we can use Apple for an example before we get into GameStop. We can use the Apple stock. So for example, this is what I, always teach in what I taught my Discord members as far as, understanding certain news events that's coming up. And earnings typically ends up being a buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. Okay. Now, sometimes it can be sell the rumor, well, sell the news, buy the rumor, whatever. It all varies. Okay. So if you know that Apple is coming out with the new iPhone or whatever, you typically know that Apple's gonna sell like crazy, right? So why wait until the Apple releases their cell phone, right? Why wait to that point? There's no reason to wait to that point. You want to get in early. You want to invest early because 9 times out of 10, they're going to sell out on iPhones. They're going to, make crazy revenue off iPhones. So why wait all the way to that point? So instead of waiting until, let's say they're releasing their new iPhone October 15th, why wait to that point when I can just start investing now and get in early? So let's say, this is somewhere around here, it's October 15th, but, we get the news that, not even the news, but, a possible release date in October around here. Well, this is where I want to buy at. So earnings typically works the same way. If I know Apple is going to kill earnings, and you can even see it here, that Apple, if Apple typically destroys earnings. So there's no reason for me to wait all the way to earnings to start investing. If I know what date Apple earnings is coming up, then I'm going to invest sooner. And you can see this pattern constantly happening where Apple just runs up prior to earnings and then drops. And then after earnings, it typically drops, and then it starts running up towards earnings again, drops, runs up towards earnings again, drop. Okay. So if you pay attention to these patterns, you can make a decent amount of money just simply knowing this information alone. You don't really have to know too much as far as that. So if you follow the history of Apple or any stock in general, as far as earnings go, you can see the same pattern being repeated over and over and over. Okay. So that's why earnings typically works that way, because after earnings, what's next? There's no reason for me to stay invested into Apple. Overall, long-term, Apple is a great stock, but I'm just using this as an example, just saying like, there's no reason after earnings for me to hold on to a stock if they don't have any type of news coming up or anything, because after earnings, that's it. So that's why you typically see stocks drop after earnings. Now, unless Apple like releases some electric vehicle or flying car or something like that, then you may see the opposite effect happen where it runs up towards earnings. No one's expecting it to release an electric vehicle like anytime soon. And then next thing you know, it just plummets and shoots new highs. All right. So that can happen as well. So if we apply that same pattern to GameStop, there we go. If we apply that same thought process to GameStop, and if we look at the history, because stocks is all about history, no one can tell you the future of a stock. They can give you probabilities and possibilities and things like that, but no one can tell you exactly where a stock will go because it can change at any moment, right? So if we look at GameStop, right, we see that GameStop runs up a little bit close to earnings this time. This was like 2 earnings back, and then it plummeted. I believe this was around the squeeze right here. So it squeezed from like what, $3 all the way to like almost $500, and then it plummeted, right? Now this wasn't earnings, but even the earnings prior to that, you didn't really see much from GameStop. GameStop wasn't doing anything, but now that we have like some type of data to go off of, right? We see that this earnings, GameStop kind of ran up, but then toward closer to earnings, it started to plummet, and then after earnings, it ran up. All right, so this was about a good 100, we'll say 120 move all the way to about a good 200, we'll say 220, right? So that's one earnings we can go off of. So let's look at the next earnings report. So the next earnings, GameStop did kind of the opposite, right? It ran up all the way to earnings, and then it plummeted. So what information can we get off this? We can see that after earnings, GameStop tends to do the opposite of, what it did at earnings, right? So this was like literally the day after earnings, GameStop did the exact opposite. And same here, okay? But here it took about, a day or two. But we could say at least 2-3 days after earnings, GameStop does the complete opposite. So that information alone, if we can use that information right there, your best bet will wait till after earnings and then do a trade. If you're a trader, you're trading options or anything like that. Now, if you're just solely invested in GameStop, then this kind of really doesn't apply to you. If you're hodling or whatever the case may be. But if you're trying to trade GameStop, your best bet is to wait after, right? But if you're trying to trade GameStop prior to earnings, we can easily plot that out real quick and see how our potential direction for this week. All right. And then we're going to go over another stock that you guys can look at to understand what meme stocks typically follow, because they don't necessarily follow the SPY or anything. They're kind of like their own little entity. So if we look in a daily chart, we see that around 150 is where GameStop typically always bounces off of. So we can use that form of support, and then we could say, okay, if earnings does plummet, then we're looking at around maybe 150. 150, maybe in a day or two, 150. If we can get that 150 touch, 150 lowest, maybe 145 touch, and get some type of bullish signal towards the upside, then GameStop will be safe to trade for a good 2 weeks, a week or two out. Okay. Because if we look back again, after earnings, it typically always does the opposite thing. If it goes up, it goes down after earnings. If it goes down, it goes up after earnings. Okay. So we can, use that same strategy for this particular stock, right? Not only that, we also got somewhat of a head and shoulders pattern that looks like it could potentially form. It's not completed or anything like that, but if we look here, we got a head and shoulders pattern. So if GameStop does go, it's not working. There we go. If GameStop does fly up for earnings, or even after earnings, then we're looking, maybe some new high. And I want to say new highs. It's really hard for me to see it go past 483 unless their earnings report is just crazy. They release, I wouldn't even know what they could possibly release, some virtual reality Halo esport event in their stores, something crazy. All right. But if we're looking to the upside, if we're trying to look at the upside, because right now GameStop is at support, hugging this support area right here. So we're looking at about 200 for support. That's a psychological level 200. So right now, if we're looking at GameStop and we see GameStop break below 200 and hold, and then if we get like a MACD crossover, because the RSI is like pointing down, but if we get like a MACD crossover pointing towards the downside this coming week, then we could see GameStop potentially head towards 150 prior to earnings. And then this is not financial advice, but then you could potentially do a call for earnings. Okay. It's pretty easy to kind of see how GameStop works after earnings, but prior to earnings, as you can see, it did two opposite things for both earnings reports. So it's really hard to gauge that, but look for that break below 200. And we could potentially see a move towards the downside prior to earnings. But if we get some type of bullish signal, maybe the MACD crosses up, and this is the daily chart, we're looking to the shorter time frames, then we could see a move towards maybe 280, 300 to complete this head and shoulders pattern. Or it may just, like I said, it's his own animal, so it may just go crazy, okay? You never know, okay? So let's look at a shorter time frame. So yeah, as you can see, if this is like some decently strong support right here, this 150 area. If we break below this, we could see a move, maybe towards 175, 170 range, and lowest I see will be 150. It's hard for me to see GameStop go under 150 right now because so many people are holding it and buying it and everything, just really buying these meme stocks. So I'm all for it. It doesn't make me no difference on, if you guys are holding it or anything like that. This is more so just to help you guys figure out the earnings report because I know everybody's like really trying to figure that out. But yeah, we got, decent strong support at the 200 level. And again, if we break below that, you can see like there's nothing but space here. There's nothing but space down here. So you can see a solid move to the downside. Maybe 190 if you really want to play it safe, but 200, you're looking for that psychological break of 200. All right. So another way you can kind of figure out where meme stocks go is if you don't notice by now, Monday through Wednesdays, obviously the market is closed for Labor Day, but if you don't notice, Monday through Wednesday, typically meme stocks run up. Okay. If you haven't noticed, AMC does that like clockwork. Monday through Wednesday, it runs up. Then come Thursday and Friday, it breaks down. Okay. And it always typically does that every single time. So if you want to like kind of implement that into your strategy or anything like that, you can do that as well. Sorry, I'm kind of like sidetracked, but if you want to implement that into your strategy, you can do that as well, knowing that most of the time, Monday through Wednesday, meme stocks run up, and then after that, they run down. Okay, this is a short week, so it can completely run different. I couldn't say, but another way you can kind of figure out where meme stocks are going if you're just maybe stuck on AMC, you're just really into AMC rather than GameStop, is you follow the IWM. And I've noticed that a lot of meme stocks tend to follow the IWM. And right now we are in a bearish flag for this IWM. So if we can get maybe a bullish signal come Tuesday on the IWM, then look for, these meme stocks to start climbing up. I don't think they'll make any huge moves, but towards earnings, maybe GameStop will follow the IWM and then, run up a little bit. And then if this bear flag breaks, then you can possibly see GameStop maybe break down, or it can, run up and then the next day it breaks down because the IWM is coming down. So there's so many ways to figure this out, guys. And I can't tell you exactly where GameStop can go, but as of now, you see down here on our RSI, we got like even RSI. A lot of people don't use the RSI this way. I do, but we bounce off the bottom here. You got one bounce in this area, and then you got a few bounces here. So IWM typically just keeps bouncing off this area right here and then comes up. Okay. So IWM is really having a hard time being oversold. Okay, as you can see. So yeah, come tomorrow, we could potentially see one more bounce here. And then, we got 3 touches so far. So typically before a bear flag even takes into effect, you get like 3 touches to the upside or the downside. And right now we're at our 3rd touch. So potentially we could see a move back to the upside. Maybe GameStop follows it and AMC follows it. And then boom, it just plummets, or I don't know. It all depends on the overall market. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you really want to trade GameStop, if you're just investing, then that's okay. So what do we know so far? We know that typically Mondays through Wednesdays, meme stocks tend to run up, and then Thursdays and Fridays they tend to run down. So that's pretty hard to fix. So come Thursday, when GameStop starts releasing their earning reports in after hours, maybe on Thursday you see GameStop start to run down, and then you can look for that bullish signal come Friday or even Monday, and get some calls in or whatever. Or if it does the opposite, vice versa. All right. And then we can look at the IWM and kind of give us an idea on if the meme stocks are following it or not, and go from there. So if the IWM is bullish and the overall market is bullish, then you can use that to gauge where GameStop is potentially going to go prior to earnings. And then come earnings, you collect your money, and then you just wait till after earnings and then do a trade there. And I believe that's it. So typically look at the overall market, guys. Make sure the overall market is bullish or bearish. And then you follow the overall market sentiment and you make sure the IWM is doing the same thing. Okay. And then from there, pay attention to that 200 level. 200 level, if anything, if it breaks below 190, that will be my signal to kind of get in on a put option. But other than that, that's just prior to earnings or even after earnings. But if you really want to play it safe, again, wait to after earnings. But that's all I got, guys. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and for the YouTube algorithm, and I will continue to push out more videos like this. If you are interested in any type of stock earnings reports or things like that, feel free to leave a comment below and I will get to you guys and make sure that happens. Other than that,